What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the Samsung Galaxy A24. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the Galaxy A24 was recently launched by Samsung, and it's yet another budget phone from the company. Now, as of the time of me recording this video, this phone is not yet available in the US officially, and this is the global model of the device. Now, keep in mind that this phone is 4G LTE only, and I am expecting that at some point in the future, there probably will be a Galaxy A24 5G, and it's most likely that that phone will be the one that makes it over to the US. So I can't really predict the future, but for now, we have the Galaxy A24. But before we get too far into things here with the phone, let's see what all comes included in the box. So here's the box, and you can see right there, A24, there's a picture of the phone itself, and then included is some literature. We have a SIM card removal tool, and we also have a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. And unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter, so you have to provide that on your own. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A24, we're getting a very large 6.5-inch display. Now this display is Super AMOLED, and it looks awesome. Excellent colors here, and it does get very bright. Now this display does feature a refresh rate of 90 Hz, so a bit faster than the standard 60 Hz that you typically would find with lower-end smartphones. To add to that, this display is 1080p, we're getting a PPI of 396, we're getting a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, and we're getting an 82.4% screen-to-body ratio. Now up top here, we do have a water drop notch, which does house the 13 megapixel front-facing camera, and this phone does have a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel. But overall, the phone has a pretty cool design to it, and I'm especially a big fan of this material here on the back. Now this phone is made completely of plastic, besides the display which is glass, but this material on the back, well, it does pick up a lot of fingerprints. It's kind of like a mirror, and when you're looking at it at different angles, it has a slightly different tint. So the fingerprint part of it is a bit disappointing, but that comes with any phone with a glossy back. But overall, I appreciate that it has a very unique look to it. Now internally here, with this device, we're getting 128 gigabytes of storage, along with microSD card expansion. So 128 gigs is quite a bit. I think for most people that will be plenty. And definitely if you're upgrading from a phone with a lower storage configuration, I'm sure you'll be very excited about this. But of course, if you do happen to fill up that storage for some reason, then you can always offload photos and videos, for example, onto the SD card. Now, unfortunately with this device, there is no wireless charging, but there is a fingerprint sensor on the power button. So let's give that a try right now. There we go, and we'll try it one more time. So very fast and responsive there. And in addition to that, this phone does support Face Unlock. So I do appreciate that we have multiple methods here for getting into the device. Now with the Galaxy A24, we have quite a few different cameras here. We have a triple camera setup on the back of the phone with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera that can capture images at up to 123 degrees, and we have a 2 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. But let's head over to the camera app and see how that looks. And you can see right here, this is the main camera. Then from there, we can go to this 0.5 button to go to the ultra wide camera. And with that, we can fit a lot more content into a single frame. And then from here, we can head over to the More tab to access the macro camera. And with that, we can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. We can also then go over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. And then flip around to the front facing camera, we can take portrait selfies. Now with portrait mode here on the phone, we do get a slider to adjust the blur. So if you want less blur, you can do that. Or if you want more blur, you can also make that adjustment. But in addition to that, there's also an option here for a group selfie, so it crops out slightly, so you can fit more people into a single frame. Now, in addition to portrait selfies, we can of course take standard selfies as well. So at first glance at least, I'm very impressed with the various cameras that we're getting here with the phone. Despite the Galaxy A24 not being a high-end device, I do appreciate that we're still getting a lot of different camera related features. And in addition to that, this phone does support 1080p video recording with both the front and rear cameras. Now 4K video recording would have been nice, especially since most people do have 4K TVs nowadays, but I suppose that's a compromise that they did have to make. Now internally with this device, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM, paired up with the MediaTek Helio G99 processor. Now, I believe I've never actually used a smartphone with that processor, so I am very curious to see how it performs, especially between now and when I create my review for this phone. But keep in mind that this processor is meant to be a lower end processor, and the phone does not support 5G, as I mentioned earlier on in the video. Overall, this device is meant for people who aren't really looking for the most powerful smartphone out there. Maybe you're not looking to spend $1,000 on a phone, which is completely understandable, and you just want a device that can run decently well, has pretty good cameras, and then also has a really good display. Now, if that's the case, this might be a phone worth looking into. Now, I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and basically with the benchmark, it gives us kind of a number score related to the performance of the phone. Now, depending on what you're specifically doing, your experience could be different from what the score indicates. But what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then compare your score to these scores to get a better idea of how the Galaxy A24 compares to your current device. Because it is possible that this phone could be a performance downgrade for you, or this phone might be significantly faster compared to what you have right now. Now, with the Galaxy A24, we have a very large 5,000 mAh internal battery. Now, what's especially awesome is that this phone does support fast charging up to 25 watts. Now, of course, as you saw earlier on in the video, there is no USB wall adapter included, so if you do want to recharge this phone at the full 25 watts, you do have to get a 25 watt fast charger. Now, most likely, if you just have random chargers laying around, those won't be fast enough to achieve this. You'll have to specifically check. For example, you definitely wouldn't want to use a 5 watt charger, which is kind of the typical cheap USB wall adapters that you see laying around with this device, because it'll take a really long time to recharge the very large battery that's here in the phone. Whereas in comparison, if you do use a 25 watt fast charger, then you'll be able to recharge the phone without having to wait too long. Now, the software here with this phone is Android 13, running Samsung's One UI 5.1. Now, overall, this is a very similar experience that you'd find with pretty much any Samsung phone, which does make sense as they do tend to keep their software very consistent. And if you've used any Samsung phone anytime recently, this experience will be very familiar to you. So there really won't be much of a learning curve, if any at all. Now, I will be creating a dedicated tips and tricks video about this phone shortly here on the channel, so definitely take a look at that to learn even more about the various capabilities of this device. And then another great thing with this device is that it does feature NFC. So if you do like to make mobile contactless payments using Tap and Pay, using Samsung Pay for example, then you'll definitely be a big fan of this device as it does have that feature. And that's certainly something that I do tend to use quite a bit myself whenever I am using devices that do support it. So I'm definitely glad it's here. But now that I've gone over a variety of different features and specifications for the Samsung Galaxy A24, let's take a closer look at the actual hardware of the phone. Now, I've already gone over quite a bit regarding the front panel here, and it is a Super AMOLED display at 1080p, and it looks excellent. On the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Then on the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. Then on the bottom of the phone, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. And then on the back, we have the triple camera setup, flash, and that's pretty much it, just the Samsung logo. So again, this is a very interesting look on the back of the phone, pretty much unlike anything I've seen from another smartphone before, so I do give Samsung a lot of credit here for creativity. But overall, I think the Samsung Galaxy A24 is a really interesting device, and I'm certainly looking forward to covering it more here on the channel into the future. But definitely let me know what you think about the phone in the comment section below. This is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next video.